if X is necessary, do you think necessary existence is an impossible thing?
No. Depends on the.
Okay, so great.
So, like, when we say we have some statement, there exists an X, like necessarily there exists an X, or whatever, there exists an X with necessarily X, whatever. On some modalities, that's going to be true. Logical modality, okay, is not going to be true, trivially, but some other modality, of course, it could be true. I'd want to know which modality. I have my own ways of thinking about modal systems.
If something is necessary, right, and it necessarily causes another thing, right? How would you know that, for example, X is necessary and X necessarily causes Y? What would be your criteria of causality?
Are you asking me what I'm taking causality to be?
Yes. Or dependency, or causality, or contingency, whatever you want to call it. Do you understand Spinoza's concern about it? Like, do you see how the normal definition of contingency fails?
Well, there's a lot of different definitions of contingency. Some of them are problematic.
Yeah, the possible world definition, the most common one, the most commonly used one.
Oh, well, possible world definitions of contingency are some of the easiest to understand, I think.
Yeah, so do you understand how it fails?
No. I mean, Spinoza, it turned out to be a sort of necessitarian, but I'm not that. So I don't, obviously if you think that necessitarianism is
true. No, not even true. The thing is, we need to have a causal account, even if necessitarianism is possible. Do you understand that? We need to have. No. We need to.
But that doesn't. Must mean possible in some other sense, right?
We need to have an account, right, for necessitarianism, or not even necessitarianism, right? For just one necessitating causal relation, right? Even if it is possible, because if it is possible and our current definitions of causality do not encompass it, then our current definitions of causality are not enough. You do understand that?
Yeah, I think what you're getting at, correct me if I'm missing the point, is that, if it can be that there's like a causal relation that's necessary, where the first causal relata is necessary, so the second one will be too. We need to have an account of causation that can handle that, because some accounts of causation won't handle it, especially certain counterfactual accounts.
So can you tell me an account of causality which would encompass this situation as well, that X causes, whatever that causal relation is. Now you have to define it. X causes Y, X is necessary, and X necessarily causes Y. So what would be the causal relation here?
Yeah, so there's a few things that I can say. One is, I'm just kind of as an aside, some of the things I'm going to say I don't believe at all. I'm in fact quite critical of a lot of causality talk, but I mean I could ramble on about that for an hour. But just to answer the question in a way that someone might want to answer it, what you can do is you can give a modal account of this causal relation, so long as you're using a different modality, one on which the things in question don't count as necessary. So
can you please give such an account?
Yeah, so you can have some like logical modality or something like that, and supposing that the modality in question on which these things counted as necessary don't count as necessary in the logical modality.
How are you quantifying logical modality here? Just to be clear to the audience.
For sake of discussion, we can just talk about some classical logical modality. Validates all the classical logical principles and rules, and it's I don't know if you want me to. I don't know. We could just take S5. as a modal.
Yeah. So can you please tell me
I don't know if you want me to elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. How would you make a system, right? A causal criteria which fits the situation I have given.
So
Like
I'm not giving a complete.
at least
I'm not giving a
no,
complete
go into
description.
detail. That's fine. Go into detail, but give one coherent system from basics in which this system, this situation that I have given you, it can be quantified.
Yeah. So I'm giving a kind of high level description here, but the point is that when you said that X is necessary, and that X causes Y is necessary, that's on some modality, right? That it comes out that those are necessary truths. What I'm saying is take a broader modality on which they don't come out as necessary truths, and then you can have in principle, you can have a counterfactual analysis of causation.
Yeah, that I
So
understand, but
yeah.
the thing is, what if there is no broader modality to start with? For example, if what if it is logically necessary that it happens?
Oh, well, right. So this response wouldn't cover that. However, I think we can argue independently that there are no logically necessary entities.
There cannot
And
be, or there are not.
well, if there aren't, then there cannot be. It's the same.
So you are saying that they are essentially impossible.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
Well, every existential statement is not a logical truth. Its negation is a coherent statement, and that's why modal logic.
No, but that's an assumption.
No, you can prove it with a truth table. Like it's just trivial.
Oh no. But how you see? But that's a problem, right? Because you are saying that X is Y, right? And
X
X
is
is
Y.
undefined. I'm just giving an example. X has the predicate Y, right? How would you know that this the negation of this statement is logically impossible? For example, I could, because the truth table, I could even draw a truth table for 1 + 1 is equal to 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously saying that, well, for example, when we are doing mathematical proofs, we do actually do it, which is called proof by contradiction. Of course, you would know that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So just making the truth table does not suffice for any kind of proof for uh, logical falsehood, or the possibility of logical falsehood. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, right, that it in any way it proves that a logically necessary resistant cannot exist. I don't know how it follows.
What? Maybe I'm missing your concern. The idea is that if you have some existential statement, we have to be able to formalize it in the relevant system. It's not. Its denial is not going to be a theorem of logic. Um, you know, it has to be where. Okay, there's going to be some statements that are going to be theorems of logic, but not one that entails the existence of um, there's some statements that involve
Yeah,
existential
but
contradiction
what
that
is
don't.
like what is it? I get it. The no theorem would actually prove it, but how do we know that even if a theorem does not prove it, it's not logically necessary? I don't get it. For
So
to me, right, it could possibly, it could absolutely be the case that something does not follow from theorems of logic, but it is just, to use another term, it is just brutally necessary. It is what it is. It has to be that way. I'm not saying it is that way. I'm just saying I can imagine a situation where there's a necessarily existing, logically necessary existent. I don't see a contradiction in that.
Elias, if you say something is
the system in question is going to involve a logic that's complete, so that's not going to be a concern. But there could be some other system in which unless okay, for example, just make it quantified a lot of logic, then it's not complete. But it's not that it's brute, right? It's still true that on every valuation in that system, blah blah blah, it comes out as true. If it's necessary, it comes out as
Yeah, but
false.
if we come back to our original
So
question,
it's not just like it just is necessary and there's nothing more to
okay,
say.
yeah, if we come back to our original question, right? If no existential proposition, right, can be logically necessary, then your original answer doesn't really help us in any way, right? Because there's no way we could broaden metaphysical modality or metaphysical modality for existential propositions to logical modality, because no existential statement is going to be logically necessary anyway, right?
Wait, but
So
that was the
obviously,
point.
no, you were
I was
saying that,
assuming
yeah,
that the original statements X is necessary and necessarily X causes Y, that's those, them being necessary with respect to some non-logical modality.
yeah, that
And then we
is,
can talk about a broader modality in which they're not necessary.
yeah, but then both of them wouldn't be necessary. That's what I'm saying.
Well, at least
So
one, yeah.
yeah, so that wouldn't help. No, even one wouldn't be necessary because they are existential statements, right? So both of them wouldn't be logically necessary. So that wouldn't help us in distinguishing or making a causal criteria.
Wait, why not? The fact that they're not necessary on the other modality, the logical modality, is what
Yeah,
could
but
help
both.
us, right?
No, I don't see how. You see, because you see, how do you think it would help us? Because see, the thing is that what is a criteria? A criteria is which would distinguish between A and B, right? What you are essentially saying is that A and B, when they're in category D, they both belong to D, right? And when they are explained on C, they both do not belong to E, right? So that doesn't help us in any way, right? Because in one case they both are belonging to the set, and in the other case they both are not belonging to the set. We need some criteria in which one belongs to that set and the other does not belong to that set. So I don't think how, I don't know, like I cannot understand how you are saying that taking logical necessity into account would help us in any way.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the worry because the whole point is, like I was describing a way, and someone might use this to give a counterfactual analysis of causation. You have to fill in some more theoretical details, but the whole point was to have another modality in which the things and the causal relation wasn't necessary, and then you can give some counterfactual reasoning in this relevant modality. So I don't know if you want me to start trying to
By
fill in some of those
modality
details.
here, if I'm understanding you correctly, you mean metaphysical and logical modality?
It doesn't matter. I was just giving logical as a proposed one. If you want to use metaphysical, a less broad one, or something else,
Yeah. So
I think modality is kind of cheap.
give an example of this, because I can't really understand your point. Can you operationalize a modality in which you would be able to distinguish between these two?
Distinguish between what?
The cause and the effect, X and Y.
Well, we can already. Wait. Was the worry that we wouldn't be able to distinguish between X and Y?
Yeah, we wouldn't have a causality criteria for it. Now, or at least our definition of causality isn't all fulfilling, isn't all inclusive. It does not apply on all existential propositions, which essentially means it is kind of a failure.
Yeah, well, I'm would be critical of any of that anyway. But let's just step back. The point was then, what I was understanding the concern was that, look, if we have some on some modality, something which is necessary and necessarily causes something else, we need to have an account of causation that can like handle that, and some accounts don't, especially those that require that will be talking in terms of counterfactuals, because
Yeah, that is exactly what the worry is. That is what the worry. Yeah.
And my part of my approach to that would be to, okay, let's grant that there's some modality in which those things are necessary, and let's grant that we're looking for a counterfactual account of causality, because obviously there's a lot more than that, but whatever, let's just go with that. One way to resolve at least one issue that we would have is to shift to a broader modality in which these things weren't necessary, because and in principle, you could fill in the details on that modality what the your counterfactual account of causation is supposed to be. I didn't fill in those details, but I mean, look at the various accounts of counterfactual accounts of causation that there are. So,
but as far as I have seen, I have not found an account. So do you have a concrete account for this? Like, I understand what you are saying, but given this approach, that this is exactly what I thought as well, right? And this is exactly what everyone I have talked to, they thought this as well. But none of them have been able to come up with a concrete account as of yet. If they do, I'll tell you as well. But can you come up with a concrete account? Or Jack Angstridge, our, mashallah, best philosopher on Clubhouse, can he?
Well, it's tough because one, I haven't really said much about my own views. I'm not a fan of counterfactual accounts of causation, especially naive accounts. Pretty widely thought that those don't work. But more developed accounts, like you'll see in like Lewis Stalnick or those sorts of things, that just seemed to go wrong and for other reasons. So like, what I would be doing here if I were to try to give you an account here, I'd be using something else that I don't think works anyway. So like, I'm not gonna. Now, someone else who like is less pessimistic.
Okay. You can just give us your account of causality. What is your account of causality?
Yeah, I'm much more pessimistic about causality in general. So I mean, when we ask what is our account of causality, well, I want to first do the kind of conceptual analysis question. When we say the word cause, what are we meaning? What sort of things are we applying it to? Given how we're using the term, kind of what would be the conditions? What sort of thing count as causally related?
Yeah, I think everyone just has a primitive notion, but I just think if something is dependent upon something else to exist, right, I consider it as a cause. Yeah, well, and that is just a primitive definition, of course, because we can't define it properly, because if defining it would use some kind of counterfactual intuition or something. But let's, for example, give an example. Like atoms of something would also be their causes, because the atom, if the atoms do not exist, the effect would not exist, right?
Well, there's actually problems with that, but because something else could fill the role of the atoms. But I just want to say quickly, it's one approach is to say that we just have this primitive notion and we can't describe it in any more basic terms, but we have some understanding and there really are causes as we use the term. I don't really take that view. I'm more of the view that as a matter of practice and history and like linguistic conventions, we come to use this word in a rather unprincipled way. So some things, there are things we observe and things we observe kind of subsequent to those that are related in certain ways, and we come to use the label cause. But it's not that we're getting at some grand metaphysical relation or applying the term in a rather principled and clear way. So obviously,
the only clear way I can think of is actually thinking whether the existential proposition of that thing is a function or not. So what I actually mean by that is, you see, like when we say a dog exists, right? To our intuition or for like in general sense, it does look like an atomic proposition, right? But it is not actually an atomic proposition if we are to look at it in terms of existential propositions, right? Because their existence non-identical to the dog, right? Which the dog is just a set of.
Well, no, hang on. The statement itself is just that statement, and if an atomic statement is one which doesn't have certain operators, then if it doesn't have those, it's atomic. Of course, you can have other descriptions of the dog.
Yeah,
or there might be other
yeah.
entailments of the statement.
I am just saying that. I'm just saying that
okay.
That the dog has descriptions, right? Or there are existents that are non-identical to dog, which the dog is just a whole of.
Well, you're just saying that the dog has proper parts, right?
Yeah, the dog has proper parts.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, and that is an account which does not depend essentially on something that is primitive, because we can actually give an account of parthood.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Sure.
Because we can give a real account of parthood, because that would go something like something has real parts, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think I have an account for that. Because why? If something has real parts, right? If the proposition that that thing exists, right,
mm-hmm.
is only true, right? If and only if there are at least two other existential propositions that are true, right? And the truth of one of them does not entail the truth of the whole proposition, the initial proposition that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I think that's a logical account of parthood.
Well, let me try to. I have some issues, but let me just try to get some clear on something. You're saying that
X is a part. X has real parts. If there is Y and Z such that X does not exist, or the proposition that X exists is not true, right? If Y and Z are not true, right? And the truth of Y or Z alone does not imply the truth of X.
Yeah, so would you then commit to the following? Because I don't want to. Here's something I definitely want to deny: that the actual parts that a thing has are essential to that thing existing.
No, so that is irrelevant to the account.
Well, but it sounds like
okay. You are taking the function. Yeah, but you see, so there's actually a good paper on this. It was written in like 2016. Yeah, so yeah, that is a debate in analytic philosophy. So how do we even
sometimes comes up on the identity as constitution debate, and I
yes.
Yeah.
So how do we define a thing, right? You could have a functional definition, but yeah, in this definition, you can't even call it essential per se, because that the very definition of that thing, the very definition of X is Y and Z, that is just a priori.
Yeah. So if you can, the term you have in mind, like you're saying, this thing just. All I mean by that, or something to count
Y and Z, exactly.
Have these parts.
Exactly.
Right? Then, of course, those parts are essential to it, and you can go.
Yes.
But I was just worried about you using this as an account of parthood generally, because not everything is defined in that way.
Okay, but if we are to use this account, then what is the problem? Don't you think it is coherent?
No. It's one thing that I get for things that are defined in terms of their parts in this way. That if it didn't have one of those parts, then it wouldn't exist. That's fine.
Yeah, it won't be that same thing. It won't be that same thing. Yes, yeah. I think everyone would agree with that.
It won't even exist, right? Because if its existence is
that particular whole, that won't exist. Yes.
Well, right, but then my concern was that if you're using your definition of parthood here, it seemed to imply. Because not everything is defined in that way in terms of the parts that it actually has. And so I think can survive the change of its parts, for example.
No, that is irrelevant. That is taking another definition of parts. In this definition, no, it cannot. We are not committed to saying that, we are not, there's no necessity in saying, a thing can survive the destruction of its parts. There's no necessity in saying that. Yeah, it really just depends upon what you mean by part, right? So,
Well,
but
then
under
again,
under this definition, it won't.
right, under this definition, it wouldn't survive a change in parts.
Yeah, and that isn't like a logical problem per se. That's just like, someone like just wants a definition where a thing does it. Yeah, then go on, make your own definition, no problem.
Well, my
in
issue is that
yeah,
my issue is that this, if you're just granting, okay, yeah, this under this definition, things wouldn't survive the change in parts, but that's not going to be consistent with how else we use language normally. Things do survive the change in parts, so I don't.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not a problem. Rather than calling it parts, just call it, charts or carts. Sure. Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Sure. Okay, we can do that. That's fine. So then,
so I would say these carts, they are, at least they can be defined as causes of something, and that's a logical account.
Yeah, I mean, you can use the word cause to define that kind of mereological relation. I don't think the word, that using the word cause there is doing anything. It's just a relation you've defined. So, so I mean, is this the sort of relation you had in mind for the contingency stuff, or
yeah? So
maybe,
yeah. So it does relate to that. So do you know? So for like a computer expert, Fuka is here. For him, it would be easy. But there's like this algorithm, right? Which would just for any system, right? So like we have some logical gates, right?
Sure.
And some logical gates have such a structure, right, that we can pinpoint a specific gate or function or whatever you want to call it in that structure, right, such that gate must have a truth value, must have a one truth value for the whole function to be true.
Sure.
Right. Some gates have these properties, or some integrated functions
some
have.
structures of gates must be such that, like, you could imagine one structure where if a particular gate didn't have a truth value, because of that, everything else didn't have a truth value of one or whatever.
Yeah. And one such structure is such a structure where you have a disjunction, right, an inclusive disjunct, where it has layers, right? So and the input, the input of the disjuncts is a conjunct, right?
You have disjuncts where the input of the disjuncts is a
conjunct. Or I'll just say it in computer science language, so it would be easier. You have an OR gate, right?
Okay.
And the input for the OR gate is like, let the OR gate be A, right? The input for the OR gate is like B, C, and D, right? And B, C, and D are AND gates, right?
Okay. Right. So B is an AND gate, and
B is an AND gate. C, it has two inputs. B is an AND gate, C is an AND gate, and D is an AND gate, right? And obviously we are taking the liberty here that the OR gate, the disjunction, can have multiple inputs, more than two inputs.
Sure, yeah. Like, so you can have many as you want, sure.
Yeah. As long as one is true, the disjunct would be true. The OR gate would be true.
And the AND gate can have more than two, I suppose. Or
no, it could, technically, it could have not a real problem there. The function remains the same. It is an and, right? So, and one of the inputs, there's another input to the disjunct as well, right? Which is the conjunction, right, or not even the conjunction, which is the disjunction, right, of all the inputs of A, B, and C.
Wait, but A was the OR gate itself, no? Or
Yeah. The inputs of A, B, and C, right? So imagine the inputs of A, B, and C.
Well, on my original, because the way I was envisaging this, originally we had this OR gate. We
have an OR gate.
And then
the OR gate. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, B, C, and D. Sorry. Yeah, and then we have E, which is the disjunct of the inputs of B, C, and D.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So in this logical structure, as you might have realized, E is a particular, like the truth, the E must be true for A to be true. Like it is impossible. E is a necessary condition for. Yeah. Exactly.
Because trivially, if one of B, C, or D are true, then it entails that E is true, and well, if the reverse is true as well. If E is true, then it entails that one of A. A, B, C is true. But you can't have any. So like you couldn't have only E true because that would entail that one of B, C, or D is true.
Yeah.
And you couldn't have only one of B, C, or D true because that would entail that E is true.
Yeah. And it just follows from this, right, that, well, it is even more simple, but it is like absolutely self-evident that there cannot be, like a disjunct cannot be true if it does not even have an input to start with, right? But to make it like even more clear, especially if the particular necessary condition is not met, a disjunct would not be true, right? So
well, the necessary condition being that one of the inputs has a value of 1. Or sure, that's one. Well, that's another necessary.
Yeah. Now we have a particular necessary condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if this is infinite, right, without a base, without never ending, right?
But which is infinite? Then inputs to E or?
Yeah. So for every A, right, it is a conjunction, right? Every input for it is also.
A was a disjunction.
Oh yeah, sorry. B, for every B, which is a conjunction, right?
Sure.
Every input to B is also a conjunction.
Every input is also a conjunction.
Yeah, and it keeps on going infinitely.
Okay. And then like
right?
each of those has an input that's a conjunction as well.
Yeah. And it keeps on going.
So you have this infinite kind of tree of
Yeah.
Sure.
And
gates.
By definition, if it is to be infinite, the necessary condition would never be met.
Why is that?
Yeah, because that is just
value 1, no?
No, they can't, because
why?
Yeah, they can't have a value 1, right? Because if you say the value is 1, right? Which necessary condition has been met? Right?
What do you mean?
No. The thing is, we can't even know a particular. Well, the first problem is there wouldn't even be an input to start with, because if someone says, "Oh, there's an input," they have already agreed that there's an input.
Each gate has an input. If by input you're talking about like a starting signal or something like that, that's true. There isn't one, but that
yeah.
For exactly. Each gate to have an input.
Yeah, because you see, that's like a law of Boolean logic, like law of impotence, right? That gates can be reduced. So layered gates can be reduced to one layer. Like you would know that, obviously. Multiple layers can be reduced to one, right? But here that reduction is impossible. So the reduction
only makes sense if you have a first and last of the sequence that you're reducing. But this doesn't have a first. So I don't So that comes
Anyway,
up with the
so
analogy
yeah,
with the
yeah,
buffer gates, right? Which is
yeah,
the same
yeah.
thing there.
So yeah, so the problem here is that in actuality, the disjunction is just symbols. It is not an input.
It's a model, right?
Yeah, it does not have an input. It's just symbols. It cannot have a truth value. It will never be true.
Wait, okay. Are you talking about the like symbols that we're using to express this model, or are you talking about if like there really were all these gates?
Yeah. If there really were an infinite disjunction, it would never be true.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly coherent to suppose that you have this arrangement of gates and they all have value 1. That seems entirely
No,
coherent.
it's not actually. It's not actually.
What's the incoherence?
Yeah, the incoherence is that by definition, right, there is no input, right, in this.
Well, there's two things there's two things you might mean by no input. You might mean that there's like, for at least some of the gates, they don't have an input. Well, that's false in this one. You might mean, on the other hand, that there's no like first signal or something like that. And of course, that's right. But why would that be incoherent?
Yeah. Because if you're saying that the disjunction is true, right? The fx is true, right? Fx has a value, right?
Sure.
But everything in fx is itself a function.
Sure.
Right? So that's a contradiction, because you only actually have f. You don't even have an x. F's do not have a function. Oh, f's do not have a truth value.
I'm missing. No, each.
You see,
we're supposing that each of the functions have a truth value. I don't.
No, what we are saying is, fx, right? Only fx have truth value. That's like logic, basic logic, right? Yeah, a formula is well formed when there is a letter in it, right? Sentence letter in it.
No, so
right.
I mean, if what you're saying is, maybe this is not.
Yeah, that there is no sentence letter. There is no sentence letter in this formula. This is just a formula.
There's going to be some mathematical or logical representation systems that wouldn't be able to represent this situation involving all these gates. Well, that's not a problem for the gates. That's a problem for the representation system.
No. What I am saying is that there is no well-formed letter in this. There's no input to this. These are just functions.
Well, yeah. I don't. The functions are modeling gates. I don't.
Yeah, they're not a function of something, right? There's no. You see, a gate is.
Each of them is going to be a function of infinitely many gates.
Yeah, and that's just logically incoherent.
Why?
Because you have nothing to begin with. If you look at it from a logical perspective, I mean, we're right now just conceptualizing it because we're trying to go in backward direction. But if you look at it from a logical perspective, what did we start with?
Nothing. There is no start, right? There's its infinite sequence of gates.
So the representation. The representation that Elias laid out. The representation that Elias laid out. You need to have a necessary source to kind of have that structure, and there cannot be otherwise.
I don't agree.
For that.
No, so why wouldn't you agree?
Well, the structure seems entirely coherent to me. I mean, if I'm missing something that entails that it isn't coherent, that's what I'm wondering. But I don't know. I could imagine an infinite array of gates set up in this way. And moreover, it seems coherent to suppose.
So basically, you are telling me that there is an infinite.
That there are no states.
Right. So basically, you're telling me that there is an infinite representation of gates, but there is no source, right?
Yeah, but the gate itself, by definition, is a representation of the source.
Yeah, that's where I was going with this.
Yeah. So let me repeat. You can have.
So do you understand what?
If you want to define a buffer gate by definition as being a representation of a source, then of course you couldn't have an infinite sequence of gates. But if I was taking a buffer gate to just be something that takes its input and puts the output is the same as the input. And that's not going to be something by definition is repeating a source. Unless by source you mean the one that inputted to it. It doesn't require that there's like an ultimate source. In which case...
No, it does, because all the buffer gates can be reduced to one buffer gate.
I already went over this. The reduction only works if the reduction process only works or makes sense if you're talking about one which has a first and last element.
No, even if they're infinite, even if you have infinite buffer gates, right? All of them, by the law of impotence, can be reduced to one. They are logically right. There's no logical. Yeah, there's no logical difference.
Doesn't make sense.
No. Even if you have infinite, beginningless, whatever, right?
Yeah.
The law of impotence states that infinite any number of buffer gates can be reduced to one.
A good way to visualize this is this. I'll give you a way to visualize it if you want.
Sure.
Pretend that it's not infinite. Pretend that it's one for a sec. Would it work if it was just one?
No.
Pretend that it's one?
No, it wouldn't, right? If it was just one, it wouldn't work. Would you agree on that, Friction?
What wouldn't work? I'm confused.
You're saying that you can just have an infinite, and then that's it. It would work, right?
I'm saying it's coherent to suppose that you have an infinite sequence where each of them has a truth value 1.
Right. It's apparently coherent, right? I'm trying to get you to understand why. It's the same as saying that it's just one gate. It's the same as just one. So let's just say it's not infinite.
Just one. I
know. That's our differences. I'm trying to show you a way to visualize it. Because you're saying that, it's completely within your conception for it to be infinite and that it would make sense for you. I'm trying to show you another way to look at it, okay? If it was just one, would it be possible, yes or no?
Would what be possible? That it has a truth value 1?
Yes.
No, because it didn't have an input.
Exactly. So if it was 1, it would not yield the answer of 1. It would be 0. If it was 2, would it yield it?
No, if it has a starting point, it's not going to yield the answer.
If it was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and onward, it will never yield it to the infinite. It'll never yield 0.
No, to any finite number, they're not going to yield it. If you're going to generalize to the infinite, that's an invalid inference.
No, it's the way to show you that no matter how many times you add to the number.
But the law of impotence is not an
I already went over the law of
inference.
It doesn't make sense if you're not talking about a beginningless sequence. Let me just be clear on this point about the generalizing from.
But the thing is, all the buffer gates, no matter how many they are logically equivalent to just one.
Their value could be the same as 1. I agree, but so what? I mean, you're not going to say that it's equivalent. You're not going to infer that the state that any sequence of them would have the same state as 1.
No. You can.
Actually, that is what the law of impotence is. Yes, that you can.
I don't accept the. First of all, I don't think it is applied. The law of impotence.
So Friction. I have a question.
I wouldn't accept it as a claim about.
So you're basically telling me in an infinite system, you can get a 1 rather than a 0, right? That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, but in principle, both states are possible. Yeah.
Right.
So you're
telling me in an infinite system, you can either get a 1 or a 0.
Sorry.
So basically, you're telling me in an infinite system.
No value.
Right. How do you get to a 1 in an infinite system without a source?
How do you get to the claim is just that it's consistent to suppose that they all have value 1. I don't know what you mean by get to 1.
So do you see the incoherency over here? That if you have an infinite system, you cannot get a 1. You'll get only a 0.
It's because it's kind of like saying
Yeah. So at least Friction, you would agree this goes against axioms of Boolean logic at least. Whether it can exist in the real world.
To cover this infinite sequence, you need some infinitary Boolean logic, and this isn't gonna violate.
Okay, so then at least
can you show me? Can you show me Can you show me that infinitary Boolean logic?
No, it can't. Even if you derive it, it can't.
Yeah, Poka Baba has like a PhD in it. He still doesn't understand it.
Friction. It's very simple. You cannot have an inputless system and expect a 1 at the end.
Why?
Because it's kind of like saying 1 minus 1 is equal to 0, but if I do this enough times, it'll eventually give me 1.
Yeah, exactly. That is what it is.
So basically, you're saying 1 minus 1 is 0, but if I do this an infinite amount of times, inshallah, it'll be 1.
What?
Because the whole
1
point
minus
of this
1 equals
logic
0,
is to
but if I
see,
do 1 minus...
the whole point of
what?
this logic is to see what it yields. You're saying it yielded 0. This is the answer. But you're saying if I do this an infinite amount of times, one of the times it'll be 1. This is what you're saying.
And at its core,
No,
it's pretty much you're
I don't even
saying...
know what you're saying, but I don't
Look,
think I'm saying
Friction,
it.
you're essentially
so then
saying
at
that
least you
things
don't
that are
understand
only...
logic.
Yeah, so look, Friction, you're essentially saying that things that are only receivers, that from receivers, you get value. And
I
they're
don't know if
just
you get
receivers by
from
definition
receivers. The
can't create
point is that
value.
I'm describing a
But
coherent
receivers are
scenario,
creating value.
right? You have this infinite sequence of gates, beginning the sequence of gates, each of which is transmitting and receiving the one from the one prior. It's not like you have the gates and somehow they're conjuring up a one. No, I'm just describing.
Yeah, but that is happening because infinite, whether there be infinite receivers or one receiver, they are the same.
Okay.
They can only have truth value either if they are either directly connected to the source or indirectly connected to the source. Would you agree with this? That one minute. Let's start with this. Okay, so you're denying this, that a receiver can receive even if it is not directly or indirectly connected to what it receives from.
Yeah, so again, there's two different senses of source, one of which they don't have, and the other they do, right? The source that they do have is that, well, each of them has another gate from which they're receiving an input, okay? The sense in which they don't have a source is like, there's no ultimate source, one that is producing a signal that's not another gate.
No, that's what we mean by source, because the other sources...
Okay, I'm denying that they need a source like that to have a value.
The other sources are just connectors. They are not like sources. They're just passing it off. So a thing can receive even though it is not directly or indirectly related to received.
That's what I'm saying is entirely consistent, yeah.
Okay.
You can have all the other analogies are entirely consistent too. The analogy with the infinite sequence of mirrors, there could just be light transmitting across all of them for all of eternity, for the past. Whatever. That's all is also consistent that there wasn't light, but that doesn't, both.
Yeah. So there can be an infinite wire, right?
Sure.
And it can have current even if it is not connected to the source of current.
Correct.
And by definition, a wire is which cannot have current in its own self.
By definition, a wire is what?
Which cannot have current in its own self.
By definition, a wire is what cannot.
It's not a generator.
A bit of a wire by definition is not a generator.
Yeah, I'm not sure what. Look, if you want to say that by definition, a wire is something that cannot have current in it on its own. Okay. Then
just
in the scenario that I'm talking about, I'm talking about wire in the more usual sense. Whatever you mean by wire, I don't know. A wire is just something like a conductor. That is something that in principle could have this current right now.
Just giving a definition and let's just give an example. Yeah, just like
you're giving a definition that I'm not interested in. Of course, if you want to define a buffer gate as something which must have an infinite initial source.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying a buffer gate, like we both agree at least to the extent that buffer gate in its own self, right? It's merely a function, right? Like you cannot even conceive of a truth value for it without being related to something else, right? At least both of us agree to that.
To have a value, receive something from a prior
gate. Exactly. So a buffer gate in its own self, no truth value, right? By definition.
Correct.
And you only have buffer gates. So it is true for every particle, every constituent, that it does not have any truth value.
Correct.
Of its own. But the whole system...
But when you have them in a beginningless sequence, that doesn't follow. Yeah.
Yeah, but once you put them in a beginningless sequence, suddenly it has truth value.
Oh, no, it could. I'm saying that there's three possible scenarios.
Suddenly it could have truth value, right?
Right.
It becomes... alone, it was not possible for it to have truth value. But when you connect them all together, it becomes possible.
Yeah, and the difference there is that alone, that where there's, or in any sequence where there's a beginning to that sequence, that's a sequence of gates or wire or whatever, where anything in that sequence has the signal or the truth value only if there's a something inputting at the start of that. But here you don't, in the beginning of the sequence of gates or of wire or of anything else, you don't have that worry because you don't have a start that's like you're questioning whether there's some input there, right? And actually, I want to say that all the three scenarios are possible, that they have a truth value 1, or they have a current, or there's light, or whatever the analogy is, that they have a truth value of 0, or there's no light, or there's whatever the other analogy was, or they have no truth value at all. That's also consistent. That analogy doesn't carry over to the light example, but all of those are consistent to me. There's going to be a remaining question is like, well, what makes the difference of why they have a truth value 1 rather than a truth value 0, no truth value at all?
Yeah, bro, you're just going to say it's a brute contingent. Probably.
Well, it depends on what's going to count as an explanation. So if we're asking why do all of them have that particular truth value, that probably is going to end up to be brute, yeah.
Bro, but look,
if you ask
the argument is very simple, bro. It's like
get a partial
friction.
Explanation by appealing to the prior ones.
Right, yeah. Dude, friction, like a buffer gate, right? Considered in itself, it has it gives the output of 0, right? When you make an infinite number of buffer gates, how exactly does that make it 1?
Yeah,
like that's what we're
one of them needs to be connected to the source to become 1.
Yeah, exactly.
It needs to be connected to something that's outputting a signal.
Yeah, exactly. You need to put, or just think of it like this: you have all the potentialities, right? All the potential existence that could exist, right? Sure. Now, these potential existence, they are in an obvious relation, right? That some of them are conditioned upon another, right?
Well, I'm not sure I want to go back to this talk about conditioned, but I feel like we could, because that's
or just say it like that there are certain ones that for them to exist, there are other ones which must exist prior to them.
Which must, I mean, then we're gonna ask what's like modal.
No, not model. Like it is it is not even conceivable, right?
Conceivable.
Yeah, just think of the definition of parthood that I gave you, right? It is inconceivable for X to exist without Y and Z.
Well, okay, so replace inconceivable with its a logical entailment that it doesn't exist without Y and Z.
Yeah.
So then we could talk about the must. There's going to be something logical. Anyway, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah. So the thing is now, these all potentialities, right? Mm-hmm. If you are saying that one of them exists, right, or there is existence,
there's a thing that exists,
right?
Okay,
right. And if every one of them needs something before it, prior to it, to become real, right? Something even more fundamental for it to become real, right? Then, then nothing would become real. Because for everything that you want to make real, there would be something more fundamental that has to become real first. So the necessary condition, for reality, the necessary condition for reality to exist would never be fulfilled.
Yeah, no, well, there's two things I want to know. One is, I think this kind of regress is entirely consistent. But two, are we including the sum total of all things itself as a thing? Because that's not something that's going to depend on something prior to it, right? There's nothing else that exists, right?
No, we are not talking about that.
Okay, so
we are saying the thing in that total.
Thing in that total. Well, actually, there's going to be many things in that total that may not depend on anything else. Okay, but
that's fine. I'm not even leaving that aside. Yes.
just thinking about this, you have this regress of entities or perhaps potential entities. It goes, well, we'll start at the end of the regress. We'll have A and then B and then blah, 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 infinitely many, no beginning. Where for A to exist, first B has to exist. And for B to exist, first C has to exist, and so on. That's the sort of regress you're considering. And that's the sort of regress I find totally consistent kind of thing.
Yeah,
they all exist because each of the prior ones do exist, or did exist.
No. That's begging the question, man. That's like someone is saying, "Oh, there's a contradiction." Mm-hmm.
You're saying there's a contradiction. I'm telling you what the model is. You're saying there's a contradiction in that model.
I'm showing you the contradiction. Yeah, I'm saying okay. I'm showing you the contradiction. I'm saying that at some point, right? Think of this. Let E be the source of existence, right? Whether be it necessary, right, or be it brute contingency, whatever, right? The initial statement, right? So do you understand this algorithm that I have told you about?
I understood the earlier algorithm about the different gates.
Yeah, that algorithm.
Sure.
That applies similarly to realities as well, right? So the thing is, in this algorithm, by definition, okay. So and you need to understand what this algorithm is. This algorithm is one which tells you about necessary conditions for the gate to be true, right? It by definition finds the necessary condition for the gate to be true, right?
Okay.
And an infinite regress by definition is that in which you would not find this gate to be true. So that's a contradiction.
But for any particular gate, you only have to look to the one prior to find the condition for its gate to be true.
No, the question is, how can you even look? How can you even look for the one prior?
Yeah. We are talking about the whole. But we are talking about existence as whole, right?
Existence as whole.
For existence as whole, for the whole disjunction, right? For the whole disjunction, that gate does not. It's inconceivable to even think of that gate, because as you think of that gate, the infinity of the disjunction ends.
There's an infinite number of inputs to that gate. We have an infinite disjunction, right?
And there are infinite layers as well.
Yeah.
Right.
No, so one way to think of the setup would be that you just have one input, and that itself has one input, and then there's like this infinite regress. It's another way to set it up, right?
Yeah. Even in that case, the necessary condition would never be fulfilled.
Well, the necessary condition for the final gate to be true, I guess, is not really a OR gate. It's just one input, so it's just like
no, my friend, no, that's not true. The necessary condition, the necessary condition.
I didn't
for you have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, right? Mm-hmm. The necessary condition for A to be true is whatever else that is prior to it.
Yeah, so strictly speaking, there's a lot of necessary conditions. In fact, there's going to be infinitely many, but one of the necessary and in fact sufficient conditions is that the prior gate is on or has a value 1.
Yeah, and that is necessary as well. So here we have the same necessary.
You could take any gate in the sequence, and it having value 1 is also a necessary and sufficient condition. But that's true.
Yeah, and there is no gate, right, for which the necessary condition has actually been met, because the place at which you say because at the
anytime you point to something is just a receiver. It's just another one.
Exactly.
You can never refer because that will also need a receiver. So. And then if the case is that no, but you have an infinity, then we ask you, is the infinity a receiver or not? You're going to be like, if you say no, then khalas, you're appealing to nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
If you say yes, then you're just appealing to a receiver.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense to say that the whole collection of them is a receiver, because in fact that's just
okay. So is it a receiver or not?
It doesn't have
No. Okay, so it essentially has input?
Because
it's incoherent to suppose it's a receiver.
So it essentially has input, right? Okay, if it's not a receiver and it doesn't essentially have input, then what is it? A potato?
It's wait. Sequence of gates. What do you mean?
Like,
wait, if it's not a receiver, it can't have any
friction. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Come on.
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll repeat it then, even though you definitely know what I mean. Okay, so if it's not a receiver, then what is it?
I could describe it in various ways. It's an infinite sequence of gates.
Yes, that's what we're saying. This infinite sequence of gates. If it's not a receiver, then what is it? An infinite sequence of gates?
How else do you want me to describe it? It's not.
It's something that if it's is there a dichotomy between it being a receiver and it having input essentially?
Is there no? If it's a receiver, it has it might have input, but if it's not a receiver,
those are the two options, right? It's either it doesn't receive or it receives. Sure, if it doesn't receive, sure. Then it doesn't receive. Like it's a tautology.
Right, it doesn't receive.
Okay, so it has input in itself. So in order to explain receivers, you have something that isn't a receiver. That's the whole argument.
Yeah.
You're appealing. You're literally concluding the argument
each of the parts is a receiver.
But you're.
I'm not clear what the argument's supposed to be. It's true that you have this beginningless sequence of receivers that, as a whole, is not a receiver. Of course, that's trivial. And I'm saying, of course, it's consistent to suppose.
Okay, so is it impossible to only have receivers?
The collection as a whole.
So is it impossible to only have receivers?
Is it impossible to only have receivers? No.
Okay, so in order to explain how it's possible, you appeal to this infinite regress. You appeal to a receiver to explain how there can't be only receivers.
No, in the case where you do have them set up in this way, where there's a beginning of the sequence, the entire collection is not a receiver because, of course, it's not. There's no.
That's the point. So you can't only have receivers.
Yeah, the entire collection
in this sequence,
is not a receiver.
You don't only have receivers, but of course,
give me an example where you can only have receivers.
Set up this way. If you just had one, that's you only have receivers.
You're saying if I only had one thing in existence and it was a receiver, you can have existence?
Right, that's why you have to reframe the question.
If you're trying to draw this analogy to other things,
no friction. The real question is this: how can you have an infinite or even a finite number of receivers where it yields the output 1?
Yeah, man, it's simple. Man, just think of it like this. It's very simple. You have a single brute contingent. Don't even imagine anything. You have a single brute contingent, right?
Sure.
Now, this thing directly has existence, right? Yes or no? Obviously, yes. Right? It is not contingent.
It exists. It exists. I don't know what directly has existence means, but it exists. True.
It is not conditioned upon anything else. Right?
Well, it is possible. I don't want to get back into this talk about conditioning.
No, in simple words, it is possible. It is possible for it to be the only existing thing in a world.
Possible for it to be the only existing thing? Sure.
Yeah. So now every other thing that I will imagine, right, would either fall under this category, right, or it would fall under the category of receivers.
Yeah.
Right.
The problem with this line, though, and I just because it's something I kind of mentioned in passing earlier, is that when you have this like the sequence of them, you're always going to have that the entire collection is something that can exist on its own. However, I think that's kind of inessential to the point, and we're just considering whether you can have, in reality, a sort of regress like this. But just kind of aside, in each of these cases, you're going to have the totality of things which does exist on its own.
No, that's not the point. That's not the point. Even if it is brute, that's fine. I am saying in every conceivable reality that I think of, right? Mm-hmm. There is something in that reality, there is something in that possible world, which can be the only existing thing in that world.
Yeah, but that follows immediately from what I just said, because the totality of everything that exists at every
no, not the totality. A particular existent. I'm saying a particular existent. It's simple.
Well,
right? Either
totality is a particular existence.
No, it's not a particular, because they are existence non-identical.
Composition.
Yeah, I am restricting composition, of course. I am saying that, you see, every reality that I think of, right, it's either conditioned, right, or unconditioned. If it is unconditioned, right, okay, it can exist on its own. Simple, no problem. If it is conditioned, right, the only way it exists is through being conditioned upon another, right?
Yeah. So
1 minute,
yeah,
1 minute, let
that's
me
fine.
complete. 1 minute, let me complete.
Sure.
Even if there's a brute contingent, right, it directly has existence, right? It does not depend upon anything else to exist. It directly has existence, even if there is a brute contingent existent, right? And now there can only be two possibilities. Either there is a brute contingent, in which case an unconditioned reality exists, or there is a necessary, in which case a necessary reality, an unconditioned reality exists. So in both cases, a necessary, an unconditioned reality has to exist by definition.
Yeah. So there's two main points. One is that, and I really think this is kind of inessential to the argument you're trying to make, but it's relevant. So I'm just going to say it anyway. In each possible world where you have either one thing or this like sequence of things, all of the things together, it makes sense to me to talk about that as the total reality. That's a thing in itself, and that's going to be something which is not going to be conditioned on something else, unless I think can be conditioned on its parts. I'm not sure. Then we have to get clear on the conditioned relation, but it's not going to be conditioned on something outside of it anyway. So you get that automatically at every possible world. But I think the kind of relevant thing is whether you can have a beginningless sequence of things, each of which is conditioned or dependent on in some way the thing prior.
So you agree there's something unconditioned,
and that seems
right?
consistent to me.
Okay, so you agree there's something unconditioned, right? That's what I heard.
If a sufficient condition for counting is unconditioned, is that it doesn't depend on the existence of something apart from it,
yes,
outside of it, then that's like trivial in the sense that at every possible world, everything that exists is going to be a thing that's unconditional.
Alhamdulillah, exactly. So it's not trivial. It's just the reality of the situation. It's necessary. You cannot have an existence without an unconditional reality. Do you agree?
Again, if we're understanding unconditional reality in this way, it's of course
obviously right.
The totality of existence, that thing can't depend on something apart from it to
exactly.
exist.
That's
because there is nothing apart
exactly
from it.
Friction, and that's all we're saying.
No,
but
that can't
if
be
there's if there's an infinite sequence, if there's an infinite sequence of buffer gates, right, then reality by definition would exist in something else.
No, hang on. There's two reasons why this is not what you're saying. Because one, what I'm saying, what I just said, is consistent with that reality, including in itself a regress of the sort that we're talking about. It's just that all of the things together, which might include that regress, is going to be something which doesn't depend or is contingent upon something apart from it, because there is nothing apart from it on which it could depend or be contingent upon. That's the kind of what I'm taking to be the kind of trivial point. Now, I don't think this argument, if we want to call it that, against the kind of regress works. All the buffer gate stuff, all the whatever, this complex algorithm function gates, whatever. I don't think that shows, either in the case of those gates or in the case of existing things, that you can't have a beginningless sequence or regress of them.
Wait, for the standard case of receivers, right? Can there only be receivers? Yes or no?
Well, if you had just one receiver, then that's a case where you only.
So let's say we push it to whatever.
But infinite receivers and one receiver are identical. There's like no difference.
You're just solving the problem of there being a receiver alone with a receiver. That's it. And then you want to appeal to a magical infinity. Ooh, but infinite. Okay, that's a receiver. What's the point?
Yeah, no matter how many buffer gates you get,
sequence of,
even if it is beginningless, like any number of buffer gates can be reduced to one.
No, not when it's beginningless.
No, because you're appointing, in order to solve the problem with a receiver having, reality.
Bro,
you're appealing to receivers.
It is one. That's like the saying a proposition has
Can I kind of clarify something?
Yeah, it's just like saying a proposition has infinite double negations behind it. No matter how many you put, right, the proposition still remains true.
Or bro, you have a hole.
Actually,
right?
That's complicated.
Also, or you have a hole, and then you're like, a hole alone. Can it just an empty hole alone with something that can just be put, like something which essentially can have stuff put inside of it. You have stuff inside a hole just because you have infinite holes. Yeah. That's it. What is there to put the let's say, like, look, you have a hole, and then we're asking, where did the soil in the hole come from? It came from holes. And where did it come from? Holes. And then you end up appealing to infinite holes, and then somehow through infinite holes you get dirt.
Hold on.
Yeah, it depends on what sort of hole, the sequence you're talking about. If there'd been like dirt falling through holes forever, and then it gets to a final hole, that's consistent.
Okay, but if a hole essentially has dirt in it, sure. But we're saying even that, no, holes, more holes. You're just having holes.
Well, I'd have to understand the scenario that you're describing a bit better. If it's analogous to the
what he's essentially saying, you believe that reality is made up of infinite holes.
Yep. And then through infinite holes, these infinite holes somehow magically some end up some dirt.
Yo,
actually, there is no real particular in reality. Would you agree with that, Friction?
There's no real particular?
Yeah, everything is a whole. In reality, everything is a whole.
When you say whole, you think like WH, like it's a composite? It's the whole thing?
Yeah, it's a composite, yes.
Okay, because I was understanding it's like talking about holes like in the ground or something. I'm confused.
Like, okay. So you do believe everything is composite.
So, and I was making the case.
Oh, that seems to be an open question.
So wait, also, and I'm making this case. I'm saying, let's say we have a conceptual whole, which by definition can only receive soil, right? In itself can never create soil. It will never have soil on its own. So now, in order to explain how this whole has soil, in order to explain this, you go like, how about another hole? Well, that doesn't make sense. But let's appeal to the magical wand of infinity. Boom. Now somehow with infinite holes, these infinite holes have somehow generated soil through, I don't even know.
Yeah, and Hadi, a way to look at it, the way you just said it, is this. If you put another hole, that doesn't make sense, right? And if you have an infinite number of holes, then you just have an infinite number of that.
Yeah, it's almost like this. It's like, look, let's say you just have one hole in existence. There's just going to be blackness. And then you go and appeal to an infinite number of holes, and somehow through an infinite number of holes, you expect it to turn into white.
Wait, but I don't think that's what Friction.
I don't really understand the scenario you're supposed to be describing.
Okay, Friction.
So, like, if you have a hole in the ground, right?
Yeah,
we're not talking about the ground though. We're talking conceptually though.
What's the conceptual?
Like, okay, like let's say a floating black bubble, right? Whatever, a circle, hole. Okay. I'm talking conceptually here. Look, you have a hole, which by definition is just something that can receive soil, let's say, or receive white light.
Floating black bubble can receive white light. Okay.
I don't know why you have to put it in the worst way possible, but sure, a bubble.
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, just simply have mirrors, man. See, you have mirrors. There are only two possibilities. Yeah, there are only two possibilities, right? One is what you call brute contingent, right? A brute contingent is okay. Whoosh, a mirror automatically starts creating light. I can even grant you that, no problem. Let's just have that even, right? The other one is that, there's a light source. Fine. Both of them are fine for this instance.
Sure.
The thing is, you are saying that there's an infinite series of mirrors, right?
Yeah.
And there is no mirror.
There can be light, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But the thing is, there is no mirror even which is creating its own light. But yet there is light. There is light. So it is not even a brute contingent. It is not even a necessary. But
it's not one mirror creating light that's brutally contingently creating it or necessarily creating it.
Yeah. There's no one. Exists. Yeah. So there is no brute contingent in reality. There is no necessary in reality either. That's a clear-cut contradiction.
No, the whole sequence might be a brutally contingent fact, or
no. The sequence is nothing. The sequence is nothing other than its parts. In the parts, right? Nothing is brutally contingent, right? And nothing is necessary either.
No. So each.
Yeah, that's just a
Like
contradiction.
Friction.
No.
Friction.
It's consistent to
I ask you a
suppose that
question, Friction?
each of those
It'll help clear
mirrors
everything
is
up.
non-brutally contingent, but the fact that there exists an infinite sequence of such non-brutally contingent mirrors itself is brutally contingent.
Okay, Friction. I'm gonna ask you a question. It'll help clear things up. Forget these analogies. We're just gonna stick to numbers. Okay. If we say 1 is equal to 1, is this statement true? Is this proposition true? Does it yield a positive or a negative?
It's true.
Right. Okay. Now, if this proposition, okay, is repeated like this, like over and over and over and over again, an infinite number of times, will it yield a negative or a positive?
Not sure what you mean for it to be repeated. If you say the same proposition infinitely many times.
If we run the same loop, an infinite number of times, we run it. We just look at the proposition. Will the proposition ever be false?
Each time you say it, it'll be true.
Right. Every time, no matter what iteration. Right. So in this particular case, with this logic, we have a situation where it's not 1 is equal to 1. We literally have 1 minus 1 is equal to 0. This proposition
1 minus 1 equals 0. Okay.
Yeah. Can this proposition ever equal 1?
Can the proposition ever equal 1?
Can 1 minus 1 ever equal 1?
No.
Okay, so the problem is when you look at Boolean logic, the one that we laid out just now, the output is 0. You're saying that if you do it a million times or an infinite number of times, it'll equal 1 eventually. This is what you're saying.
It's not that it will equal 1, it's that it's consistent that it does.
He's saying even in Boolean logic it won't make sense. He's saying that. In Boolean logic it is illogical. You need some other kind of logic.
So either A, you just say Boolean logic is not necessary, it's not important. There's another type of logic. If so, please provide us the case. Or you say that Boolean logic does accept it. Does Boolean logic accept it? Yes or no?
As far as I know, there's nothing in like infinitary Boolean logic that would prohibit.
Okay, but if we look at Boolean logic, it tells us.
But Friction, I really don't know any infinitary Boolean logic which does not have inputs. Like, do you know any?
So I think we're just going in circles, but the point is pretty evident. Friction, I don't understand which part you're not understanding.
Oh, I understand it. There's just the claim is wrong.
Why is it wrong? Can you kind of prove to us why is it wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could go through all the.
No, basically, you're telling us that an infinite would make sense because one would depend on another and another would depend on another. But you are kind of neglecting and kind of ignoring the fact that there is a fundamental difference between a receiver and the source. A receiver, you can have an infinite number of receivers, but without the source, those receivers are meaningless.
Yeah, you're appealing to things. I don't accept that. Essentially, you're saying this. You're saying there is existence with only that which only has the ability to receive existence. You can appeal to the craziest combination in history, the most complex number series in history. By definition, everything just has an ability to receive only. That's it. And through the ability to receive, you get something that creates value.
It's not that they're creating, but look, it's true, right? If we're talking about the gates or the mirrors or the wire or whatever, each of the sort of elements in the sequence is such that it exists or has a value of 1 or has electricity if the one prior to it outputs that line.
Okay, yeah. You guys keep repeating the case scenario where, each one has 1 prior. We're saying, okay, let's assume this. If this is the case, all you have is that which has the ability to receive. Wait, and then your response to that is just restating the case scenario.
Wait, hold up. Instead of going in circles, Friction, can a receiver ever output a source? Can a receiver ever yield a positive alone?
When you say alone, you mean without having an input?
Exactly. Can one receiver ever yield 1?
Not the sort of receivers that we're talking about.
Exactly. Okay, now, can any set of receivers yield 1?
Any set that has a beginning and no input at that beginning cannot yield 1. That's correct.
So there needs to
be... Okay, wait. Now, when you say an infinite regress of receivers, you're appealing to a set of receivers, which you just said a set can never equal 1.
Yeah,
that's it.
Even
no, you didn't listen. You didn't listen. I said a set that has a beginning. That's not a set that has a beginning.
Bro, Friction, do you know what the law of idempotent is?
Yes, law of idempotence.
Yeah, but
Yeah, okay.
infinite set and finite are identical. One is equal to infinity.
One is
Logically,
what?
Yeah. For all buffer gates, they are not different. More you put one buffer gate, two buffer gate, three buffer gate, or infinite buffer gates, they are all equal to one.
No, I don't understand how the law of idempotence works.
Yeah, bro, because in series, if they're like the same buffer gates, they're just equal to one. Like this is a law in Boolean logic.
How does it make sense when you have an infinite sequence? I don't know how that.
Bro, why would it change when you have an infinite sequence? Like you gotta prove it changes.
He's just saying. All he's saying is this. You'll always have. He's essentially saying this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Christian. In an infinite case, the difference is you'll always have something to appeal to. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, and you can do this because you have this magical infinity. But this infinity, are you appealing to it? Yes. So then, if the infinity is just the receiver, then where is it getting its value? You're just appealing with a magical infinite one. Ooh, but look, this is a special receiver. This receiver can somehow have value on its own.
In short, 1 minute.
Now we're going back to this.
Clarify anything, bro.
That the entire sequence is not a receiver.
He's saying that the infinity is a brute contingent, right? But nothing in the infinity is a brute contingent.
Sure.
You see, the infinity is a brute contingent, but nothing in the infinity is brute.
There would be things in the infinity that are brute contingents. That is,
right? Like
any subset of the sequence that includes the infinite beginning.
What?
No. Each buffer gate has a prior buffer gate.
Yeah,
all of them are explained.
Each buffer gate wouldn't be brutally contingent in the sense that you could at least partially explain a state by the ones prior. But that's
not a brute contingent.
Fully. Yeah,
right,
you could fully explain it.
Well, it depends on what we're counting as a full explanation. But what I was saying is that you seem to be implying that the only brute contingency here is the entire sequence, when that's not correct, right? Because there are subsets of that sequence that would also be brute contingencies. And that's consistent with
but they're just conceptual. Yeah, but they're just conceptual sets. All the sets are conceptuals. In reality, all that exists are particulars.
Yeah, and one of those particulars is going to be like a bunch of these gates.
No. Yeah, but no particular is brutally contingent. All particulars are
no.
So no particular is brutally contingent and no particular is necessary either. That's a clear contradiction, man.
What? No, there are a bunch of them that are brutally contingent. In fact, there's going to be infinitely many brutally contingent.
No, bro, there are none. Because each one is fully explained by the one prior.
Yeah.
No, you're confused.
How is it brutally contingent when it has a source of its reality?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Confused.
Wait, you know the wait, Friction.
Like if your parents gave birth to you, how are you brutally contingent? Like how?
I'm not saying that. You're misunderstanding me. The individual buffer gates are not brutally contingent.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. So but there's still going to be infinitely many sequences in the reality.
No. We are just talking about individual buffer gates. So no individual buffer gate is brutally contingent, and no individual buffer gate is necessary either. MashaAllah, yeah. Like pure logic.
Well, I think he's saying like subsets of the buffer
they're all non-brutally contingent. Yeah.
Friction, the point is that you can keep denying it, but you have to make a logical, argument over here as well. You need to kind of explain to us how does an infinite number of receivers can give you a value of 1 without a source.
Because I'm not sure what else to say. There's no inconsistency in it.
Also, wait, Friction. You know how you said like a few minutes ago, bro, that if there is a finite set with a beginning, right? It would have a cause, and so it would have an explanation, right? Any subset, you did say that in the beginning.
No, I didn't.
For any subset, it would be explained. That's very clear.
Yeah, it would be explained by whatever's prior to it.
Yeah, that's very clear. For any subset, nothing in the set is brutally contingent, because for every subset, there would be something prior to it explaining it.
Unless there's just a floating subset without something prior.
False. Because there's going to be subsets that are going to include the beginningless part.
Wait.
So consider the set that goes A, B, the very last one, most recent.
There's no last one, man. For every set, there would be something prior to it.
Right, the last one, but you can have a last one with this. For every set, there's one prior to it. Well, that's fine. I'm talking about the last one in the sequence.
Yeah, but that goes on for
and then there's
infinity,
a
bro.
beginning of the sequence before that. Well, there's a proper subset of that entire sequence where that proper subset ends at
brute
B.
contingencies
And that's
sets
also going
is
to be
such a meaningless concept, to be honest.
Sorry?
I mean, if you're saying there are brute contingencies as sets, that's meaningless because eventually you're going to infinite, right?
Eventually going to infinite.
Yeah, no, the thing is, we are even giving the brute contingent, no problem with that. But the thing is that a mirror can only have light when
Now we're going to go
either
back to the mirror example.
1 minute, it can only. I think we should stick to it because it is very simple to be. It can only have light in two scenarios. In two scenarios, one, okay, it popped light out of nothing. We even grant that, even though it seems highly absurd, absolutely illogical, we still grant it. That mirrors just whoosh, mirrors now have light, mashallah, no problem. That's one scenario, right? The other scenario is that it is connected to something, right, that essentially has light, that just has light and does not depend upon anything else. They're the only two options a mirror can have light.
Yeah, you're just saying emptiness is creating creating light.
I'm not saying it's being created by emptiness. I don't even know what that means.
He's not even saying it is being created by emptiness. That you see, that is a brute contingent. That is still fine, right? He's not even saying that. He's going one step further. Not only is emptiness creating light, right, but there is no individual mirror that has light out of nothing.
Yeah, the light was never created, right? The light has just always been traveling, right, between mirrors. That's just
but there's no notion of, obviously there is no notion of time here, obviously, because light is just there. Yeah, there's just the light is just there. There is no mirror that essentially has light, and there is no light source either.
Right.
That is absurd.
Why? Seems entirely
because there is one mirror. You are saying there is no mirror, right? That essentially has light.
Right.
Right. And there is no mirror either that had light pop out of nothing.
Right.
Right. Yet you are saying light popped out of nothing.
No.
Right. No, you are saying that. You are saying it is either. Yeah,
I'm
one
saying
minute.
Light always was. That light has always.
That's
been
fine. No, man, popped out of nothing. By that I just mean, a potential is actualized. That's all I mean. A contingent becomes a real. A contingent becomes a real. Right.
Well, it's not like it wasn't there and then it became there.
No, right? I'm not making. I'm just putting it in temporal terms.
Existentially.
For existentially.
Sure,
so you're saying, So existence came out of nothing. That's fine, right? But you are saying no existent came out of nothing. But existence could only be when existents were. You understand, Hadi?
Yeah. So each. Each
segment
of the light. You can think of a segment of the light that
each existent didn't come out of nothing, right? But existence came out of nothing. But existence is only existence.
Yep, it's no different.
Yeah, mirrors. Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. Mirrors, no individual mirror had light come out of nothing, right?
Correct.
Second proposition, light came out of nothing.
I don't agree with
that. Right?
Light came out. That's not true in the model that I'm describing.
No, it is true in the model that you're saying it could be rather it is brutally. You are saying no, aren't you saying that it is brutally contingent that there is light?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is exactly what I mean when I say.
If that's all you mean by light coming out of nothing, then sure.
Yeah. So you're saying no mirror had light come out of nothing, right? Light came out of nothing, right? And light only subsists within the mirrors.
Correct.
Clear contradiction. So simple. 1 minute.
Composition. What?
No, it's not. It's not. 1 minute. the light only subsists within the mirrors, right?
Correct.
No mirror had light come out of nothing.
Right.
But light came out of nothing.
Right.
Now tell me, now tell me, how is that
if you're inferring a contradiction, that's just like textbook fallacy of composition. Like what?
That's a textbook contradiction.
Yeah, textbook fallacy of composition.
No, that's a textbook contradiction.
Okay, drive the contradiction.
Bro, just explain how it's a contradiction again, and
yeah.
Yeah. So he is saying that, first of all, we agree that light is nothing other than the sum of all mirrors, right? Like nobody disagrees.
Well, the light is traveling between the mirrors, but we're gonna, yeah, sure.
Yeah, the mirrors are just existence. When they are potential, when they get light, they become actual, right?
Well, the mirrors are always there, right? It's just whether they're transmitting light.
Oh man, I'm not talking in temporal terms. I'm not talking in temporal terms. Why are you taking it in temporal terms, right?
What? Okay. I don't know
so,
how to think about it, but all right.
Yeah. So no mirror had light come out of it. Essentially,
in the sense that it didn't, it just produced it on its own, that sort of thing.
Yeah. No mirror produced light on its own, right?
Correct.
Second premise: the light got produced on its own.
When you say the light got produced on its own, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, it is brutally contingent. It is brutally contingent.
Okay, it's brutally contingent that there is light there.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Third is the premise is light only exists within the mirrors.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is very clear that the mirrors were potentials, right? There is no existent, right? That it's very simple. I will put it even in simple terms. There is no existent.
You're supposed to be driving a contradiction.
One minute. Yeah, I'll show you. There is no existent that actualized its own potential.
Right.
Potential.
None of the individual mirrors, that is.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'll just put it in simple terms. It would be very clear. No potential, right, actualize its own self.
No potential to actualize its own self?
Yes. No potential actualize its own self, right? But
sure.
The sum of all potentials.
I understand that.
Yeah, the sum of all potentials actualized its own self.
What does it mean for it to actualize its own self? I'm not really following.
Very clear contradiction. I cannot even make it more clear.
When you say it actualizes, well, it's not a contradiction. The way you stated it was just a trivial composition fallacy, but I'm trying to understand what it means.
Composition fallacy, man.
I'll tell you. You said none of the individual things actualize their own self.
The collection.
The composition of them didn't actualize its own self.
The collection.
Wait.
The collection of potential is nothing other than the potentials in themselves.
Bro, wait. So the Brute contingency status, that's an emergent property of the set?
No, man. Not even emergent. 1 minute, abstract. No, it's not even emergent property. It's simple. Abstract. You are a third person, right? You understand what a potential is, right?
Yeah.
What is a brute contingent? A potential actualizing its own self. Yes.
Yeah.
A brute contingent. He is saying actualizing its own self.
Yeah.
You want to say
potential actually
too, right? Or no?
Yeah, that's the definition of a brute contingent. A potential actualizing its own self.
Okay, so all you mean by potential actualizing its own self is that it's brutally contingent.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So here's the inference that I'm getting so far. Correct me where I missed something or get something wrong. Each of the mirrors on their own, or each of the mirrors kind of reflecting light, is not brutally contingent, right? Because it's explained by the one prior or something like that. However, all of the mirrors reflecting light, like collectively, is brutally contingent, and that's supposed to be a contradiction because composition fallacy. Like, well, maybe I'm missing it.
No, I'm making it even more simple. No potential actualized its own self, and that is how I have always thought about it. No potential actualizes its own self. Right?
Right. So none of the individual ones are brutally contingent. Okay.
Yes. Absha, open your mic.
Boliye.
No potential actualizes its own self. Right?
Right.
all potentials actualize their own self. Literally what he is saying.
When I say,
I think.
so
sorry,
you're making
please,
explicit the composition fallacy, right? When I'm saying all potentials actualize their own selves.
No,
I'm
think of it like this. 1 minute.
I'm saying that the collection does, because it's not.
Think of the set. Think of the set of all existence.
Sure.
Right? All possible existence. Right?
All possible existence. Okay.
Yes. To make them actual. Right? To make them actual and to make them brutally contingent. Right? To make existence brutally contingent. Right? Some potential has to be actualized on its own. Think of 1 minute. Think of it like this. I'll try to make it as simple as I can.
But that's consistent with the response I've been giving.
No. It's not. Hadi, open your mic a little bit for a little.
But that's what you were claiming, that you've explicitly claimed that was my position.
No. I think you are not understanding. 1 minute. Let me explain.
Okay.
You have, right? Now let's even just take causality aside, right? Let's just say we have individually existing things, right? Just think of them all as dark bodies, right?
Dark bodies,
or whatever, mirrors or whatever you want to call them.
Okay.
Right. For mirrors to have light, right? For mirrors to have light,
right?
We have actualization. You can call it the source of light, right?
You have actualization, you can call this the source of light?
Yeah, source of light, whatever
Man,
you want to call it.
Think of it in this way, that something that comes from the outside, quiddity.
Yeah, exactly. It has to go. Yeah, it has to go in there, right?
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, if you're saying that the infinite sequence of them has to have light coming in from outside the sequence, that's what I'm denying.
Friction, is the sequence a potential?
Yes, exactly. The sequence is a potential. Yes.
And if you say it's not a potential, then it's just actual.
Yeah, you have.
Then you concede
a necessary existence anyway.
When you say
if you say it is a potential,
actual, I'm trying to understand what you mean by being potential.
No. It was potential, non-existent, right? Existence has to enter it from somewhere.
That it didn't exist.
Yes.
And that's existence.
All right, Friction. Tell me, can you think of a pink cow right now?
Can you think of a pink cow? Is that what you said? Sure.
Yeah. You can think of it, right?
I can visualize that sort of thing and
sure.
Ways, yeah.
Now imagine I bring something from the outside and I give it existence.
You say you make a pink cow?
Sure. Now when you think of a pink cow, that's very distinct from whether it exists or not, right? Do you get that point?
Well, my thinking exists. Whether there is a pink cow, that's another matter. Yeah.
Right. So basically, what you thought of was an attribute of essence. What really is a pink cow? To bring it into existence, you had to add something from the outside, quiddity, which is existence. Do you get that perspective?
Well, I would translate some of this because I don't like some of this language, but that might just be a communication thing. I don't think you don't make my imagination real. That's confused.
Yeah, that's fine. All he's saying, you are actualizing a potential. What we are saying is simple, man. If you are actualizing a potential, there is a particular potential that you have to actualize.
What's the potential in question?
Man, every reality.
Look, actually, Friction, you're doing that. You're literally actualizing a particular. You're just saying the particular is the whole. That's all you're saying.
Exactly.
You're just appealing to a magical. I'm telling you, it's literally appealing to a magical entity that is a potential that receives light on its own.
Yes, exactly. The whole became actual.
No, the whole didn't receive light.
No. For you, the whole is brutally contingent, right?
Sure.
The whole actualizes its own potential. Nothing outside the whole giving it anything, right?
And if the case Friction,
brutally contingent and actualizing its own potential.
Friction. We don't have to use the language of actualizing itself. We're saying the whole, is it a receiver, meaning it gets its existence from something other than the totality?
No.
Okay, so then you have something. In order to have an infinite number of receivers, you need something that isn't the receiver. That's it. That's what we're saying.
Well, if the conclusion then is that you have something that isn't a receiver, which is the whole, then sure. Okay, that's still...
Sure, that's still but we have something that's not a receiver, correct? And you need something that's not a receiver.
You need something...
Yes, Friction, you need something that's not a receiver. Okay, so therefore, actually, you can't only have receivers.
I said this earlier, right? When we were talking about some of those things that come up in this sort of discussion, I said, if you took all of reality together, that can't be a receiver or...
I'm not, bro, I'm not even saying that is the total of reality. I'm saying this infinity, you're appealing to it. Wait, is this infinity real? Yes or no?
Is this infinite? I don't think there's actually this infinite sequence of mirrors, if that's what you're talking about.
No. I'm saying in this case scenario, would this infinity be real?
It would... Yeah, in the example, it would exist, yeah.
Yes, okay. So where does it get its existence from? Does it get it from something external to it?
I'm just leaving aside this concern.
Wait, no, Brett, please answer the question. Does it get it from something that isn't it?
No, well, no, but I want to be clear on something.
There you go. So therefore, there is something that doesn't get its existence from something else.
Yeah, and of course.
Simple. Okay, alhamdulillah.
I'm saying that's a necessary fact.
So the next question is the nature of this thing. But you first have to concede that there is something that doesn't get its existence from something not itself.
Yeah, I said that at the beginning, that this necessarily...
Okay, so, and something that doesn't get its existence from that which is different than itself is not a receiver. Correct? It's not a receiver. And we're here trying to prove that you can't only have receivers. And you're arguing against this point.
No.
And while you're arguing against this point, you're appealing to something that's not a receiver. Like, what kind of ridiculousness is this?
No,
it's very simple, man.
Okay, I think we're going off. I think
it's not circles. He's just not accepting it.
Yeah, the potentials. It's very simple. He's saying one minute. Then you can just one last.
Okay, then I'll respond. I'll wait for you to
finish. Yeah, he's saying. The other guy. Yeah, you're just saying the potentials as whole, they actualize their own self, right? But the potential in no potential in particular, right? No potential in the whole actualizes its own self. That's exactly what you're saying.
Okay, so you're finished. Can I respond to the other guy now? And then if you want, I can respond to that because I already addressed that. So at the beginning, like, I don't know how long ago this was, when we were talking about conditioned upon or some other relations that were similar to this, like needing or depending or something. Although I think all these relations are vague and I would want some further clarification. I'm just going with it for discussion. If you take all of reality, everything that exists together, there's nothing apart from that, like outside of that, on which something could be contingent upon or depend upon. So in that sense, of course, it's going to be all that stuff together is going to be.
How would internal to it?
That's an
maybe it's an extra question, but it's either it gets it from something internal or it doesn't, right?
What do you mean?
Yeah, so that's a different question. I agree. Yeah. However, it either gets it from something internal or it doesn't, correct? Do you agree with that point?
Something...
Yeah, like, do you agree with the point that that set, whatever, you can call it freaking potato set, it doesn't matter. Infinite potato set, well, you can call it whatever, names really don't matter. But it's either it gets it from something internal or it doesn't. And we both agree it doesn't get it from something completely external. So it either gets it from something internal. In the case scenario where it gets it from something internal, then the internal gets it from the whole gets it from the internal, we have circularity.
No, so
In the,
yeah, we have circularity.
in the case
No,
scenario,
so
in the case, in the case
relation I was
scenario where it
considering was
doesn't,
the whole
please,
doesn't
please,
get
please,
something from
wait, let
internal.
me finish my point. In the case scenario where it does not get it from something internal and does not get it from something external, then you have something independent, which is what we're trying to prove.
Yeah. So the relation that I was considering, and this why I made the whole point that I did now and like an hour ago, was that if it doesn't make sense for it to, something doesn't depend on one of its own parts in this way, right? We're talking about something apart from it, something external to it. If there's nothing external to it, then of course it's going to be independent in the sense we're talking about.
We both agree on that. There's a point we're disagreeing, right? So answer that.
Okay. So what are we disagreeing?
Yeah, so I just said. So the question is whether it's truly independent, meaning it doesn't get its existence from another. In the case scenario, gets it from something internal, you have circularity. Because in order to explain a member, you appeal to the whole. In order to explain the whole, you appeal to a member. Now, if that isn't true, remember, I'm laying out both grounds. So please at least try to cover both. Please, at least try to respond. Okay? So in the case scenario where it doesn't get it from something external or internal, then in this case, we now have an independent reality. We can talk about the nature of this independent reality later. But for now, we have an independent reality.
Now, yeah, you know, I have 1 minute friction, one minute friction, one minute. I have like I think the most, like the simplest example that I could like ever come up with. I think this is like the simplest example I can think of. Suppose you have a body of water, right? That is absolutely still.
Sure.
Right? And then you say like there is like a wave, like you put a droplet in the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which causes waves, right?
Okay.
Now the movement in the water can only be of 2 types. Either you are the support which hit the droplet, right? Or you are a surrounding support, right? Hadi, can you imagine it?
You're surrounding what? Sorry, I didn't catch that word.
Like you hit a rock at a body of water, right?
Yeah.
So, and there are ripples in the water, right? The movement in water can only be for 2 reasons, right? Either you are the spot at which the rock hit, right?
Oh, spot.
Or,
okay,
yeah, or you are the waves cause, or the movement is because you are connected to that spot, right?
Yeah.
Your example is like this, right? There are waves in the water, right? But there is nothing that there's not even that spot that that the rock hit, right? The rock never hit the water, right? There is no spot. Essentially you're saying this: there is no spot in the body of water that the rock hit, right? Yet the rock hit the body of water.
Oh, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, you're saying that.
The analogy to what I'm saying is that there would always be waves in this body of water, yet there's no rock that hit the water. Yeah, that's what I would be saying. I'm not saying there's like a spot where the rock hit, but there's no rock. What? That's not what I'm saying.
No. Let the rock hit be, brutally contingent thing, right? Something that is
brutally contingent thing.
Yeah. The spot that the rock hits, it becomes brutally contingent.
The scenario that I'm imagining doesn't have a rock, so I'm trying to understand what the relevance of the contingent rock is.
The spot that the rock hits, right? That spot is brutally contingent.
When you have a rock hit, sure.
Right. The spot that the rock hits. Hadi, can you understand what I'm saying?
No, I'm typing something right now, so
okay. Abstract, can you understand it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, imagine a body of water, right? You hit a rock at it. The point the rock hits, right? That is a brutally contingent thing, right? What friction is saying is that there is nothing brutally contingent. So there is actually existence, right? It's neither necessary. No particular existent is necessary. No particular existence is contingent, right? Now,
Yo,
The
bro,
rock.
Ilyas, just 1 second. Rishi, bro, I told you, bro, like 5 times. We believe in an infinite regress of material causes. Like, stop
Yeah,
asking for a contradiction.
I've been
I've said
writing
this
it in
like
the
5
chat.
different times, bro. Like, please shut up about it. Anyways, yeah,
He
Ilyas,
doesn't
continue.
understand, man. He doesn't understand how can an infinite regress be, logically possible in our perspective. He just doesn't get it. That's why he keeps writing that in the chat.
No, anyway. So what friction actually believes in is that this body of water, the rock actually hit it, right? But there is no particular point in the body of water that the rock hit.
Bro, it's more like there's a ripple without a rock at all. Like, that's how I'm imagining it.
Yeah. You can even say that. But you see, he's not even saying that a particular point. Yeah,
Wait,
a
Abstra, what is
particular
that? My
point.
mic was glitching. So it's logically
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, I
So what?
said we believe in an infinite regress of material causes.
Oh, I see. All right. So
Ilyas
then,
affirms that, I affirm that, Poka affirms that, Hadi affirms that.
okay, I see
There's
that.
no
So
contradiction
what he's
here.
Oh, there's
saying,
no contradiction. Then
what
what's
he's saying is that, yeah.
We're not
Yeah,
talking about
1 minute,
material.
man, 1 minute.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
another
trying to
thing.
make it clear. What he's
Man,
saying
can
is
we end
that,
this argument with friction? I think
yeah.
we've come to this consensus.
Yeah, just last thing. What he's actually saying is that the body of water moved itself, right? The body of water moved itself. But there was nothing in the body of water that moved itself.
Yeah. Literally.
That is exactly what he's saying.
Yeah, that's actually so clear that the body of water is self-moved,
Moved itself.
but nothing
Yes.
moved itself.
Yes, nothing in the body of water moved itself. Clear contradiction.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think there can be a contradiction even more clear than that.
Well, no, that's the same composition fallacy.
Actually, Ilyas, it's not just one contradiction; it's
I'm not saying
infinite
that the body of
contradictions.
water
It's actually
itself. I'm just saying that there's always been waves in it.
Yeah. There have always been waves in it. Exactly, that's what you're saying. So the body of water is self-moved, right? Self-moved, self-actualized, self-moved, self-actualized.
If by self-actualized all you mean is that it has that and it's like brutally contingent, then
yeah, brutally contingent, self-actualized,
sure.
Yes, but nothing
that's
in itself.
Then yes.
Yeah, not. But nothing in the body of water is self-actualized.
Well, no area of it that has a beginning and end.
One way. Okay, so, bro, so like in this set of like
you're again just applying this fallacy of composition. Like you're saying that because
no, bro, we're not. It's not a composition fallacy, bro. It's not a composition fallacy.
Composition fallacy.
No, bro. Look,
he's literally saying that none of the individual places in the water self-actualized. So therefore, all of them together didn't self-actualize. That's just what it means to be a fallacy composition.
None of them, but in this case, this is not a fallacy of a composition because the whole is no. Because in this case, the whole is identical with the parts. There's no emergence.
There's not more.
Fallacy of 1 minute. Fallacy of composition only applies to instances where it's either emergence or demergence. But neither emergence. No, it does. Show me a case where neither. No, it does. Show me a case where neither emergence nor demergence is possible, but fallacy of composition is true.
I'm not sure what you're counting as emergence, but take any other case of the fallacy of composition. Like what?
Fallacy of composition is only works when there's either emergence of that property or demergence of that property. But existence is neither emergent nor demergent.
Yep. Doesn't come from another.
I'm not quite. We're saying that there's something true of the parts that's because it's true of all the parts. It's true.
Oh, I think you don't understand how the fallacy of compositions work. Fallacy of composition only applies to those properties that are either emergent or demergent. But
what's
existence
an emergent
is
property?
Which emerges, which emerges out of something else, right? But actualization, right? Something which actualizes. If the parts actualizes, the whole actualizes, right? If the parts do not actualize, the whole does not actualize. If the part self-actualizes, the whole has to self-actualize. Because the whole cannot exist
if the
without
parts
the
have mass,
parts.
the whole has mass. That's true. That's true as well. I'm trying to understand what the relevance is.
Yeah, what I'm saying, if the parts are self-actualized, the whole is self-actualized, because the whole is nothing other than the parts. For the whole to
The
have
whole is a collection of
existence.
parts.
Yeah, exactly. So the for the whole to have actualization, what it means to have actualization is for the parts to have actualization. So if you're saying the whole is self-actualized, oh bhai, how would the whole exist if the parts do not exist? So
Parts do
the very
exist.
moment, right? The existence, the self-actualization of the whole could only happen through the self-actualization of parts.
Why?
There's no other way.
The parts have to be actual. Why do they have to be self-actualized?
If the parts are not self-actualized, right, the whole cannot be self-actualized.
You keep claiming that. I don't agree. Why would the parts have to be self-actualized for the whole to be self-actualized?
Because the whole is the parts.
Is the parts? It's composed of them. Yeah, and you have to move beyond saying that they're composed of it to say that the thing two of the parts are two of the whole.
Identical. The whole is identical with the parts.
Okay, the whole has those parts.
And no part is self-actualized.
Right.
No part is self-actualized. So tell me how the whole can be self-actualized. Because for what it means for the whole to exist, one minute. For what it means for the whole to exist is just that the parts exist.
Right.
1 minute. Or to make it even more simple, man, suppose the whole had only one part. Right? So the self-actualization of the whole is the self-actualization of the parts.
Right.
Same for 2 parts, same for 3 parts, same for 4 parts.
No
matter how many.
But once you go to 2, you're already wrong, right?
No,
the self-actualization, because the actualization of the whole is not the actualization of any one of the parts or like any list of the parts separately.
No, I'm saying at least one part. At least one part, right? At least one part has to be self-actualized. Yeah,
Why?
At least one part of the whole has to be self-actualized if the whole is self-actualized.
No.
How can you say no to this?
Yeah, so if you include the thing itself as a part, because it's not a proper part in normal parthood, the thing, then if the whole is self-actualized, then the part which is identical to itself is going to be self-actualized. Now, any proper part that includes the regress is also going to be self-actualized in this way. But
no, it won't be self-actualized. It won't be self-actualized. It would be actualized through another.
No, that you don't understand the proper part that you don't understand the proper parts that I'm talking about. Identify the parts with say the negative numbers, right? So you have -1, -2, -3. The proper part that includes all the negative numbers except for -1, that's a proper part, right? But it's going to be self-actualized in the same way because it's the beginning of the sequence. But none of the individual numbers, I agree, none of the individual numbers would be self-actualized.
Yeah, so if none of the members are self-actualized, how is the whole self-actualized?
I mean, because that's the scenario that's just true on the model. I don't know, it's consistent. What?
How is it consistent? I don't understand how is it consistent. Because you see,
bro, he went.
Because he went left.
Yeah, he pulled an Umar. Anyways, we have Rishi on stage.
No, I don't want to talk more now, and we have to save the replays. Let's just close this room now.
Okay, start another one, bro.